Thank every single one of you for being out here this afternoon. You know, we made a decision to be here tonight and not in Washington. There'll be a lot of people that frankly don't go to the floor tonight and sit in on this speech, and it'll not be noted. But frankly, that's not my style. So we sent out a communication about a week ago saying we're going to choose to be with the residents and with our constituents in New Mexico in this heroic fight that you've got going on. We're going to choose to be here tonight because we believe in you. Now, we've got a bill in Congress called the Virtual Congress, because I think the government would work better if we were all out among our constituents tonight and watching the State of the Union on TV. Every one of us should be out here all the time. Our founding fathers believed that the government would work better if we were here. They didn't ever anticipate this strong, centralized government. They left Europe to get away from the kings and the monarchs. And here we are reestablishing the kings and the monarchs in Washington, D.C. And I'm saying that enough is a damn enough. Let's get out of here. So to those people in Washington who wonder why I'm here and not there, I'm here to represent people like my mom and dad. Dad was a sharecropper when I was born. They made $200 the first year, $50 the second year for a year's worth of work. They were absolutely broke, and they came to the oil fields to get a job. Like many of the people out there, Dad was just a roustabout, the lowest level you could enter. That's all he ever did until about the last 4 years of his career. He raised 6 kids, and every single one of us got the opportunity to go to college because he showed up every day to go to work. And I'm showing up here to be with those people who go to work every day, who raise their families right. They take them to church, they take them to school, and they go to work, and they pay their taxes, and they make this country work. And you got those people up in Washington saying that substance is not as important as this State of the Union message, and I will tell you they are dead wrong, because this nation is fed up with Washington and with the fancy words and the fancy deals coming out of Washington, and we're forgetting every person on the streets. So make no mistake, there was never any question why or where I was going to be tonight, because I believe the future of New Mexico, I believe the future of the country, and I believe that the future of this planet is in this area, in these kind of decisions. We're either going to stand up and fight and preserve what we have, or we're going to give up and be just wiped away by people in Washington who have a lot more power than we do. They have more power until we stand up, and that's what we're doing here tonight. I want to say a special thanks to the senators who came down from Santa Fe tonight. Give them a round of applause. Thank you for that. By the word, we just got word that in Santa Fe, 33-28, they just approved a resolution in this Democrat-controlled legislature approving of what we're doing here tonight, approving the fact that we should not be listing this lizard, that we should find a different way. This is not about the Democrat-Republican Party. This is about the human life and the human values. That's what this is about. Some of my friends on the other side of the state say, why should we be interested in what goes over there on the east? You heard Senator Lavelle. Oil and gas puts $1 billion a year. That's just oil and gas. It doesn't count the taxes paid by the people working out in the oil and gas fields. It doesn't count the gross receipts taxes. Oil and gas put $1 billion a year into the Treasury. About $400 million of that goes into education. If you're in Las Cruces, if you're in Santa Fe, if you're in Albuquerque, you better wonder what they're doing here on this species tonight. Because they shut down oil and gas and agriculture, I'll guarantee you that you're looking at pay cuts and you're looking at things for teachers that we don't want. And so the rest of the state should get engaged in what we're doing too, because we're the ones that provide 40% of that $1 billion into education. We fund the firefighters. We fund the police. That money funds every governmental activity that there is. And so it doesn't matter if you're in agriculture. It doesn't matter if you live on this side of the state. It doesn't matter what you do if you're in New Mexico. You're going to be affected, because if oil and gas goes away and if agriculture goes away, They're going to have to raise your taxes, and when they raise your taxes, that kills jobs. So understand that this is an extremely important issue for the entire state, for every single resident of this state. And what are we told by the Fish and Wildlife Service? Trust us. Trust us.
Yeah.
Trust us. Are y'all watching what happened a while back? 20 years ago, we had a vibrant timber industry in the state. 123 timber mills in this state. And they listed a spotted owl and said it's going to go extinct. And they said the problem with that spotted owl is logging. So we got to shut down the logging, and 80 to 90% of the timber sales in the country went away. 123 mills closed down here in New Mexico. We did away with an industry that hired almost as many people as the oil and gas, just like that. Because logging is killing the spotted owl. That's what they said 20 years ago. You know what they said last month? January 2013? They said it wasn't the logging after all. I'm sorry, the people in this next building said it was not the logging after all, and they killed that industries? What about Cloudcroft, Ruidoso, Silver City, Grants? What about those communities that have been starving out when they shut down the timber? And what about those communities where they started burning down the houses last year? Yep. They burned over 500,000 acres in New Mexico, 255 houses up in Ruidoso. Those are burning because they quit logging.
That's right.
Bad management is causing bad outcomes, and we're supposed to trust them. So I will tell you that this fight tonight is a huge fight. Now, you're going to get to speak tonight, but you're not going to be spoken to. That's our government at work. I will tell you, it's an offense. We started asking people to show up like this about 2 years ago. They were going to close all the roads. 95% of the Gila National Forest are going to be closed. Now keep in mind, they got 1 million acres of wilderness right next to the Gila National Forest. 2 million acres in the National Forest. And they were going to shut those roads to 95% of that. And we asked people to come out and show up. About 800 people showed up. The Forest Service said, that's funny. We don't ever get that many people show up when we advertise. And I said, no, because you advertise Washington speak. You said we're going to talk about the travel management plan. I tell them the truth. We're going to talk about shutting down your forest. That's what we're going to talk about. Now you have to ask yourselves, does this do any good? Does it do any good for you to come out here and sit in the cold? By the way, give yourself a round of applause. Right now, a round of applause for you. Because you're the reason that we won on the lizard fight. You're the reason that we won over in the Gila. And you're going to be the reason that we win here. Because the government, last year on the lizard, how many of you are out here on the lizard? We went over there and there were more people outside than inside. It was a little bit warmer. The organizers of that event came up and said, Mr. Pearce, could you go out and talk to those people outside? They're kind of testy. I said, well, that's what happens when you go to killing people's jobs. They get a little testy. Yeah. I said, I ought to give them your home phone number. No, I'm not going to go calm them down. You know, we're going to let them speak up. The rest of the country is wondering what's going on in New Mexico because they want a little bit of this. What they're wanting is a little bit of your courage and a little bit of your stand-upping. They want a little bit of your voice. I gave a speech about 1.5 years ago at the National Association of Counties in Washington, and people from Michigan, people from Wisconsin, places you're just surprised. They said, what's going on in New Mexico? I said, it's liberty. It's called freedom. We're standing up and saying that the government has gone too far and we're not going to stand for it any longer. We're going to stand up, we're going to march, and we're going to walk down there and we're going to take the country back. That's all it takes. You know, after the Forest Service burned down 255 houses in Ruidoso, we started a public discussion about whether that was good policy or bad policy, and the Forest Service was screaming at us, hey, you can't talk about this, we've got a fire going on. I said, I know you got a fire going on. I'm just worried how many more houses you're going to burn. We're going to talk about you all the way to the finish time.
Right.
The realtors in Ruidoso called for a public gathering just like this. Now the realtors began a little bit like Billy did. I kind of feel a little nervous. We're out of our element here. My comment is every one of us better get out of our element because the government's taking charge of things that it shouldn't be taking charge of. Those realtors spoke up and they said, we're just not going to stand it anymore, that enough is enough, that we're not going to put up with this. You know, about 3 or 4 weeks after that, the Forest Service said they're going to stop the policy of letting it burn. They had a policy, fire starts out here. That fire up there in Ruidoso was 2 acres for 3 days, 2 or 3 acres, got up to about 4. Then it blew out of control and was 1,000 acres, and then 10,000 and 100,000, and it was burning down the houses, and then they brought everybody in because they were afraid it's going to run right down the Upper Canyon. So the head of the Forest Service, Tom Tidwell, had told me when he visited up there, came in for a photo op, didn't talk with any of the constituents. We had a town hall meeting set up. They didn't want to go to that. He said, we don't have a policy of letting it burn. Well, that was funny because about a week after the Ruidoso realtor stood up and said no more, they said we're not going to continue that policy of letting it burn, so they stopped the policy they didn't have because people stood up and people began to fight back. I had the chance to meet with some of my environmental friends. They were the ones that brought the lawsuit to stop logging around the Bonita Lake. And we said that. And they said, don't say that about us. I said, I'll say it about you. Stop doing it. They said, would you meet with us? I said, sure, I'll meet with you. They said, what do you want? I said, I want a clean forest. I want a forest that's like nature had it, 50 trees per acre. That's what we want. We want to quit burning down our forest. That's it. If we have 50 trees per acre, the grass grows back, and the grass keeps the water from running off. When the water stops and slows down, it percolates in and recharges the aquifer in the Pecos River. The Hondo irrigation project, all of those things start flowing again. The people that have been suing the government, and by the way, they sue the government with your dollars. Did you know you reimburse them? Did you know their lawyers can get $750 an hour? When is the Occupy movement going to start complaining about the wages that are made by those lawyers, $750 an hour for the Wild Earth Guardians and for the CBG? Center for Biological Diversity, excuse me, CBD. They're lawsuit factories using your tax dollars for full employment of their environmental lawyers. Now something seems desperately wrong for that when they're after your jobs and after the jobs of people like my mom and dad. So yes, I'm going to speak up. We'll find the compromise, we'll find the common ground, but it's going to be the ground based on common sense. But until then, this government is not going to work a bit better until we all start standing up. Now, we don't want the lesser prairie chicken or the owl or any other species to go extinct. What we're saying is that you can't manage the world for single species. You can't manage the environment for a single species. That the human species has to be considered too. I was talking to Dan Ash. He's the guy that will make the final decision. He was the one that made the final decision in Washington on the lizard. I said, show me the studies of what you've done about the economy and the effects on the economy. He said, we don't have to do that. The arrogance that he said it with just flew all over me because I see people like you when he says, we don't have to consider you and we don't have to consider you. Our founding fathers did not intend that kind of government in Washington. That's the reason they wanted a central government that was very weak. Article 1, Section 8, very short list of things that the government can do. Article 1, Section 9 begins to be the prohibitions because they're afraid of what it would do. And then the 10th Amendment says, just in case that they didn't get the idea, that all rights not specifically stated for the federal government would be reserved for who? The states and the people, and you are the people. And so I'm asking you the people, begin to stand up. I didn't go to Washington to fight I went to Washington to try to cure the economic ills of the country, but I find myself in fight after fight after fight, just like this. And so I tell people, I didn't go to Washington to fight, but I'm going to stand beside you every time you show up to fight. When you show up to fight, I'm going to show up to fight, and we're going to give our voice to it. I'm asking you to stand up now, stand up, and we're going to walk over there, and we're going to tell the Fish and Wildlife Service about your job, and about your future, and about your families. It will only occur when we begin to stand up. Yeah. Never do we give up this country when we stand up. And when we sit down and take it, they'll take our country from us. God bless you all. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Appreciate it.